We want to connect with other like-minded individuals who share our passion to drive impact, to create disruption, to do things differently. We've not changed. Yet we're in a world of mass disconnection, discomfort, distraction, and distortion, and noise.
Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident. Good day and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Steve Sims. Do you know anybody that's worked with Sir Elton John or Elon Musk, sent people down to see the wreck of the Titanic on a seabed, or closed museums in Florence for a private dinner party and then had Andrea Bocelli serenade them while they eat their pasta? You do now. Quoted as the real-life Wizard of Oz by Forbes and Entrepreneur magazine, Steve Sims is a best-selling author with Blue Fishing, The Art of Making Things Happen, and Go for Stupid, The Art of Achieving Ridiculous Goals, sought-after coach, top-rated speaker, after keynoting at a variety of networks, groups, and associations, as well as the Pentagon and Harvard twice. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Steve. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. As we were talking about before I hit record, for the listeners, people watching on YouTube, I've had the pleasure of meeting Steve virtually, obviously, through another group that I belong to that you're familiar with and heard me talk about at the 365 Driven Society. And Steve is a hoot, but he's got a great sense of humor, but he's also very articulate. He's done a lot of great things for so many great people. And I'm looking forward to finding out how the origin of all that started from little Steve to where he is today. So Steve, let's start out with your origin story and the key things from your, again, little Steve to where we are today with growing up Steve and all your accomplishments. If you could please start and share that, I'd appreciate it.
It's going to be boring.
I doubt it.
Probably the worst way to start a story. I don't think it's any different. I think my life is pretty much the same as every other entrepreneur. I hit a point in my life where I became aggravated and curious. And I always am keen to say both of those things. I got kicked out of school at the age of 15, was told to be on my dad's building site, and for about the next 2 to 3 years was on that building site. But like all entrepreneurs, we're wired differently. We see things differently, we react differently. And even back in the 90s, I was looking at this going, well, because of course we didn't have Instagram to show me how inadequate my life was. But I was like, hang on, I'm getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to bed at 8 o'clock in the morning. I've been shit on, I'm wet, I'm bashed, I'm cut from being on the building site. So I knew how to work hard, but I didn't have any money, and I didn't have any sustainability, and I didn't have any longevity, and I didn't have any future outside of what I was doing. And I thought, is this it? Is this really my life? And of course, I'm asking that at the age of 16 and 17. And it was that curiosity along with the aggravation. You see, I believe a lot of people are curious. Oh, I wonder how that's done. Oh, I hope that can be done. And hope is a really shit strategy. And it's one that happens in the armchair. But I was aggravated. And when you're aggravated, it propels you. Why can't I do this? I need to find out. Why are they doing it? I need to find out. So it was that aggravation that led me to leave the building site, get tons of jobs surrounding myself with affluent, successful people, which led me nowhere because I realized there were a lot of jobs I just was not qualified to do. And I made loads of mistakes, but that mistake was like the education. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, that didn't work. But let's be serious. It's only got to work once. And I went from a bricklayer, banker, stockbroker, jet charters, yacht charters, door-to-door salesman, all of these different jobs to ending up working on the door of a nightclub in Hong Kong, which again, like all entrepreneurs, we see things different. The other two meatheads on the door with me, they just wanted to save the blood off their shirt and go on with the hot toddy that night. Me, I was getting a Harvard degree in human psychology and interaction. I was getting to see how affluent people treated each other and how the wannabes, those fakies that pretend they got money, how they actually stand, act, react. So I got that immense education. And I knew I wanted to have conversations with these people. So I thought, well, what do you need? Hey, they need good cocktail stories. They need access. They need to get into the parties. They need to go backstage. Right. So if I can do that, can I have 2 hours of your time? Can I have a conversation with you on how you look at culture, recruitment, relationships? So basically, I would podcast in the 90s before podcasting existed. And along the way, because of the access I had, because I knew it was important to you, I ended up founding the world's leading experiential concierge firm for billionaires. That lasted 25 years. I sold that, launched a book. In fact, I got paid to do the book because I thought no one would ever buy the bloody thing. Because I thought, it's going to aggravate you. It's too obvious. Everyone does this, surely. Only to find out that people weren't. And now I coach, teach, and I have Sims Distillery, my own community, and I do that all over the planet now. So that's from little Stevie to big chubby Stevie.
Big chubby. I don't think you're chubby. For those watching on YouTube, you can comment below. What do you think? Do you think Steve is chubby? I don't think so. I think he's a handsome, bald guy, just like me.
Oh, shucks. We are.
Being bald is sexy as far as I'm concerned. Come on.
Yeah, I'll agree. I'll agree for the obvious reasons.
Wow. So 15 years old, you were kicked out of school.
Yeah.
And your dad, so obviously your dad had a construction business and you were working on a building site. So, what was that conversation like? Was it just really short and simple? Okay, you don't want to be in school, come to work? Or was there a lot of animosity and fighting over what was going on?
No, there wasn't. You see, bearing in mind, the British school system is different to the American school system and the Canadian system. So we would leave school at the age of 16 and then go to college. Yeah, I believe here you leave at like 18 and go to college. So we left school earlier in England, but I hit 15 and I was in my final year. So I was very young for my year. And the college tutor just turned around and said, don't bother applying for college. Just go and find a job. And that was it. She thought, I've got nothing. And bearing in mind, how many entrepreneurs do you know that were really shit at school? Because it couldn't hold them. Most people are putting their hands up. It didn't excite them. We learned that if we didn't tick the box, we were wrong. Yet, surely ticking the box wasn't the only answer. You see, the school system, especially the older school system, taught really good employees. It taught you how to follow orders. It didn't tell you how to create, disrupt, challenge. It just taught you how to follow the rule book. So I just realized at the age of 15, something wasn't right. The school system thought you're not right and kicked me out. And my dad was like, well, there you go. You're obviously not a smart one because I wasn't following orders. You're obviously not the smart kid, so you're not going to college. So I better get you on the building site. It took quite a few years. And bearing in mind, both of us were over the age of 21. Do you remember, and it's kind of funny now, back in the 80s and 90s, if you were an entrepreneur, That meant you were selling shitty car audios that someone had stolen off the back of a lorry or something. Being an entrepreneur back in the 80s and the 90s, it meant you couldn't get a real job. It wasn't glorified. It wasn't romanticized. You were damn near doing stuff that was shady. Now, if you're an entrepreneur, oh, you must know Elon Musk. You must know Larry Page. Oh, you're one of those disruptor people. We didn't idolize it back in those days. In fact, if you were called a hustler back then, it was basically an insult. Now,
yeah, you're a snake oil salesman.
Exactly. Now, if someone says, hey, I'm the best hustler you'll ever meet, you're like, great, you start tomorrow.
Yeah, I like how you put that, though. Back in the 80s and 90s, as an entrepreneur, I'm a serial entrepreneur, and used to get people would tell me, even family and other people I'd worked for, and I was starting my first business, and they were going like, "What are you doing? Go get a real job. How are you going to support your family? Like, are you serious? Maybe you should go back to school." And that broken mentality of that school helps us. Unless you're going to be a doctor or a specific thing where it requires school. Honestly, you look at the stats in North America, and it's probably the same in Britain as well, in the UK. Literally, most people that go to university, college, 65 to 70% of them that graduate don't even do what they went to school for. And a lot of them finish their degrees or their diplomas only because they've invested money and they've got pressure from their family. Well, you can't quit. And they realize within their first year, sometimes the first few months, that they shouldn't be in that program, and they do it anyway. They come out of school with a bunch of student loans. Then they're stuck into the hamster wheel of life at a job, having to pay that excessive loan off, and they're stuck in a rut. All they've done is they're walking back and forth, go to work, go home, get paid, and creating their own grave. It's just like, honestly, I'm so pleased that the world, not all of it, but a lot of it, is realizing entrepreneurs have what it is required in our world. They actually implement. They actually are very, very intelligent. And you talked about school. I'm not the greatest. I wasn't dumb, but I wasn't the greatest, and I was labeled for certain things. And at the end of the day, I'm just thinking to myself, like, I'm better than that. How dare you? Just like that person that said to you, like, you're not, go get a job. You're not worth it. It's, how many people today, it still happened with, even my kids, they're all adults now, where a teacher can literally deflate somebody, can rob their dreams, because guess what? They don't have any dreams, and they're stuck in a rut. They're on that hamster wheel, so they figure they might as well pull everybody else onto that hamster wheel as well. So I appreciate you sharing that. You talked about you were a bricklayer. You went door to door sales. All those things tell me, though, is that you're a tenacious person that is continually, throughout your life, you wanted more. You weren't going to settle and have somebody put a label on you. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah, that's that aggravated curiosity. I think the curiosity is there for us to kind of think, what if? And the aggravation is the thing that perpetuates it. There's a lot of people that sit in their armchair and they're curious about things, but they do nothing with it. So when you marry that aggravation with it, that propels you to actually go and find out the answer, even if it's the wrong answer.
Well, there was probably times throughout that aggravated period, or all those different things that you were going through, where you were just like, maybe I'm wrong, but I know myself, as I tried figuring out my niche in life and not wanting to get stuck in that niche. So I always wanted to continue to elevate my mindset and what I, served mankind with. There was times where I was living from, more month than money. Days would keep on going by, and I was living on, lines of credit cards, as I was trying to figure it out, because the difference between me and the person in the job is I was willing to take the risk. I was willing to say, you know what, I'm going to spend this last dollar, because you know what, it might make me 100. I'm willing to take, it didn't make me 100. What did I learn from it? Most people get defeated.
Different. We are different. I remember when, and it was one of the reasons that the Harry Potter movies were so successful, because it made people realize that we are different. There's the trouble, the cancerous toxicity that affects entrepreneurs is that we spend a lot of our life trying to fit in, only to realize that we were never built to. We are those people that stand out. We are the Hogwarts. We are the weird kids that were never meant to fit in. And the daft thing is, I don't take this as an accurate statistic, but I don't fucking know if it is, but 85% of the world work for those 15%. There are more people with a poor mindset than there are a successful mindset. Yet the poor mindset are extremely loud and noisy. And the second you start becoming disruptive, creative, entrepreneurial, growing into your own wings, the second you start doing things differently, all the naysayers who see you breaking free like the crabs in a bucket, they try to pull you back with hatred. Oh my God, look at him. What's he trying to do? How can he do? He can never do. They don't want you to succeed for fear that you will expose the fact that they can't. And so they try to drag you in. I remember a friend of mine saying to me, be so successful you have haters. And that's a shame, but we get naysayers. And I remember when the concierge business that I owned started getting more notoriety through the magazines and the newspapers, and people were saying to me, oh, how can you live with yourself? Well, quite well, thank you very much. Thanks for asking. But you just get people for no reason, and you release a book. What gives you the right to think you know it all? I don't. I know this, and I knew this from getting it wrong so many times. And I'm trying to freaking help you, but you can't help everyone. So you've got to realize that your job is to disrupt. Your job is to stand out. Your job is to aggravate and rub people up the wrong way, because a lot of people, they don't want to change. They've been taught how to settle, some of it by the school system, the rest of it by the IRS, the politics, business, life. Is taught people how to settle and put themselves into a little box, but we don't see the box. In fact, if anything, we sell the box to these people.
Oh yeah, there's so many people out there today though that are negative, that are attacking, and the critics, whatever you want to call them, because their lives suck. So they use it as it's a distraction from their own suckage. They don't have anything going on. They don't have any potential. Their brain's gone into a sleep, and all they can do now is hate on people for being successful. I had that happen with my own book. I had that happen even since I've started the podcast. I've had that happen with people that I've gone and spoken on stages in regards to, financial planning and what you need to do and why it's important, and touch on the aspects of what's your money monster. And then I get hatred over it. Like, what do you know? Well, what do I know? Is I lived a life of some of that quiet desperation. But the difference between you and I is I didn't suckage and stay back, in the back of the line and suck my thumb. I literally made a difference. I changed my life. I learned from my mistakes and made them life lessons. You choose to say where you're going to stay, and you're going to spew hatred at me. Have fun with that hatred. And when you're eating dog food out of a can at retirement, or you can't afford to even go to the local movie house and watch a movie when you're retired, that's a you issue. You didn't listen. You weren't willing to, step out on faith and be a disruptor, take those risks. Like, I look at some of the things I've done in my life and the suffering I put my kids through when they were younger. As a single dad of 5 kids, ended up having joint custody, went to full-time custody, but I still took risk. And most people, Steve would be like, you got 5 kids to worry about. Why are you taking that risk? Go get a good job. No, I don't want a job. I want to be me. I want to be that weirdo like you talk about. I want to be that person that's unique. And I used to tell my kids when they were growing up, you know what? At the end of the day, your teacher's saying you need to do normalcy, normal job, normal this. I want you to be abnormal. And they look at me, what do you mean, Dad? And then as I started teaching them that, they'd tell some of their friends or teachers, and I had people reach out to me, why are you telling your kids they should be abnormal or different? I said, because I don't want them to be the masses, that 85 that's working for the 15, which your numbers, by the way, are pretty accurate.
Yeah,
right?
That's close enough.
Close enough. Well, it's true. Here's a stat that my listeners, some of the newer listeners, right now, if you're in a room of 100 people, Steve and I have both been in a room of 100 people, tens of thousands of people, literally base it on 100. Statistics prove that just in North America, 91 out of 100 people are going to be dead or dead broke by the age of 65 years of age. Only 9 are going to be successful. That 9 is going to control the other, what's left of the 91% that's still alive. Right.
Yeah.
And they're going to, and then the 91% are going to be the critics and the naysayers. And we're going to continue to disrupt till the day we take our last breath. I know I am. I know you are. those listening and watching, what do you want out of life? Are you sick and tired of being on the hamster wheel? You know, hopefully you reach out to people that are going to make a difference in your life, like Steve or myself. So Steve, one of the things I really wanted to ask you about, because I know you talked about this on a call I had the pleasure of being on, where Tony was communicating and you were sharing some stuff with us, is, you know, you work with Sir Elton John and Elon Musk and so many other people. They're globally known superstars. Let's be real. Who doesn't know who they are? They are humans just like the rest of us, put one sock on at a time, however unique in their own ways. Steve, after working with them both, can you tell me what similarities those two powerhouses have and what sets them apart from one another as well?
The strange thing is, very little sets them apart. One of the reasons that I wanted to go out and have the conversations with the people I did was because I wanted to understand quite simply why them and not me. You know, why did they have money? Why did they have friendships? Why did they have security? Why did they have this illusion of confidence? Why did they have it and I didn't? So my whole goal was to go out and to interview those people. Now, when I say those people, some of these people are famous. You've just named two of them. I won't, but there are people that I've worked with that you have no idea who they are. They own things like shopping malls in St. Petersburg, or they own things like countries. Hugely successful people. And I'm not on about the hereditaries. I'm not on about those people that inherited it from their dad or their mum, or, it's like listening to financial advice from someone that won the lottery. Fuck do they know? They bought a ticket in a gas station in the middle of freaking nowhere, and now they're a millionaire. They don't know it because they don't have the journey. I don't want to hear about how to get slim from someone that's never been fat. I don't want to hear about someone how to make money from someone that's never been bankrupt or lost it. It's the journey that makes us. So I went out to interview those people. And yes, you've named two of them that you know. But the funny thing is, whether it be someone successful in, Korea, or someone that's a rock star in Los Angeles, or someone that's a tech giant in Silicon Valley, or someone that's really wealthy in Ukraine. There's loads of common threads outside of that cultural differences, culture and demographics. And the differences or the alignments are the same. One is they hire on culture. That was one of the first things that really came about. They get into relationships based on culture, not skill set. You see, if I want to work with you, and you don't know how to speak, I don't know, Persian, or you're not very good on Excel spreadsheets, or you're shit with geography, hey, I can send you to night school to learn all that stuff. I can get you a course online and you can learn it. But if we don't share the same cultural alignment, if we're not fighting for the same battle, if we both don't want the same things out of the end goal, well, I can't teach you that. Culture is something that is in you. And so we get into relationships, or they get into relationships based on cultural alignment. I both want this. I both want the same vision. We both want the same mission statement. So we recruit and align ourselves on relationships based on cultural alignment. The second most important one is time. That was the thing that really shook me. And when you actually have a conversation with any of these people, Elton John, Elon Musk, Richard Branson, Larry Page, any of them, Mother Teresa, they all come down to the same thing. They don't go, oh, what did you watch on TV last night? Oh, what did you have for breakfast? They don't give a shit. What are you working on? How do you think that's going to change the world? Why you? Why do you think you're the person that can do this? They want to know what you're doing on to get the most out of that hour. And a huge signifier of that was COVID. COVID showed us a real divide in human psychology. The second we got into COVID, it was a chance for us to focus on where we were. Were we where we wanted to be 5 years ago? Or had we lost track? Had we gone off kilt? Had those 2 degrees sent us down a different journey that we didn't know we were going to be in? Were we happy with our family, our product, our brand, our statement, our conversation, what we stood for? Now, during COVID, and I don't know if you're aware of this, over 5 million first-time millionaires were registered. Those people that went, hang on a minute, I've got the chance to do something. My competition is just as fucked as I am. They can't do anything, you know? So let me polish where I am, sharpen my sword before I get onto the battlefield. But there were also a big divide of people that went, well, I binge watched The Sopranos. What else can I watch on Netflix? Oh, the government's going to give us some money. Great. How can I sit on my ass long enough to get more? You know, there were two divides of people. Those that went, hey, COVID, this is an opportunity. And those that went, hey, I can waste life. Excellent. Thank you. How else can I waste it? And it was very, very obvious of those two mentalities. You've got to focus on time. I can make more money. I can make more impactful businesses, but I can't make more time. So the time I have, whether it be this hour, the next hour, because I don't know if the next one's coming, what's the most I could do? And I'm hoping having a podcast with you is going to get some lazy fuck out there. And that's maybe a bit too much of an aggressive prod, but I want someone out there that's listening to this to go, hey, I don't have to do it like I'm always doing it. How can I do it differently? How can I impact more people? How can I sharpen my brand to make sure that I'm impossible to misunderstand? How can I clear up some of the confusion in my conversation? How can I be a better solution to someone's problem? It doesn't have to be the same tomorrow as it was yesterday. And I'm hoping this conversation that me and you are having is going to get someone to do something different and dare to go for a laughable goal in a gotcha world where we're all sitting out there going, ooh, look at him. He's trying to stand up. Let's play whack-a-mole and knock him down. That's a pretty bad society and one I don't want to live in. So I'm hoping that our conversation is going to challenge someone to do something different, because the number one common thread through all people is they know that they're not going to get more time, and therefore they want to do the most out of it.
Oh yeah, it's so true though. Time is something that we take for granted, and people don't understand. They don't really honestly think about the fact that they can't have more. They're worried about what's going to happen, oh, the summer's coming up in 7 months, 8 months. Where am I going to go? They're not thinking about living in the present moment. They're worried about other things that really worry about when it comes up. Worry about right now. What are you doing? What difference are you doing in your life? And you talked about the fact of everything I hear coming from you is, what can I do to better and continue to serve? And, I can go make more money. It's not about you. It's indirectly it is, because you got to better yourself, or you got to put yourself out there with a new idea to make things different. You talked about hiring on culture, not skill set. That is so true. Working with the willing. I can sit and talk to people, or I can be speaking in a room of, a few hundred people, and there's people that their brains are checked out before I even start talking, or I start talking and they check out through it because I'm not in the right room. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes we're not sitting with the right client. They're not willing. Their culture doesn't connect, right? We're not networked together properly, or whatever you want to say. COVID certainly did show, right? I remember our mutual friend Tony said to us, this was about 2 weeks into March of 2020. He says, where are you guys going to be? We're on a call of us together, a bunch of entrepreneurs. He says, where are you guys going to be? This could be 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years. Are you going to sit back on your ass and, like you said, be that person talking about what you watched on Netflix last night? Or are you going to be that person that's going to say, this is what I'm doing? This is the next step to what I'm going to do, and utilize your network of culture, of like-minded people to better yourselves. Tony would say, well, oh, that's a great idea, Dwight. How about this? Or somebody else in the group would say, hey, Dwight, what do you think? You have some knowledge or expertise in this based on all our calls. How can you help? And we went, our culture of mindset, of entrepreneurs, helped ourselves grow. And nobody on those calls 3 years later is stuck where most people are still stuck. They got done COVID and they're still stuck in the same place. Still trying to, we have a shortage of people. I don't know about in the US or even in the UK, but in Canada, we have a shortage of workers. People that didn't come back to, like, we still have the same people. Why aren't you working? Because, lazy, or they don't want to work, and they're just stuck. The difference between, like you said, you want to disrupt somebody. For those people watching or listening, you know what? It's never too late to give a heck about your life. Stop being on that hamster wheel, disrupt your life, and go out and do something. Take a risk, because if you stay compliant with society's norms of anger and bitterness, like Steve says, I don't want to live in a world like that, neither do I. You will never honestly be happy. You'll always be looking for stuff to be negative and bitch about. And I know myself, you're not in my tribe if you're that type of person forever. If you're honestly wanting to change, you're part of my tribe and listening to this show for a reason. And that's why we have great people like Steve on, because hopefully they can disrupt you. And I love that. He's the disruptor. Right. So, Steve, I imagine you have criteria you look for when accepting clients, right? Do you have any stories about someone, the listeners or viewers, who recognize that you turned down to help? Or you don't even have to give a name, just an idea of a story of why you wouldn't help them, and because of whatever they presented to you?
Oh, absolutely. I've always said hire, take on the client, not the checkbook. There's a common misconception that wealthy people are fantastic people. They can be just as big a prick as someone who's got no money. So focus, again, it's down to that culture. Take the person on, not the checkbook. We had this was back in my concierge days. We had a client, well, wasn't a client. We had a guy contact us, and we were working with Elton John for his Elton John party, the Oscars party. And this guy phoned up, was speaking to one of my girls in the office, and this girl contacted me in mine, and she said, look, can you take this call? Something's not right with this guy. So I get this guy on the phone. He's a New Yorker, brash. He's like, yeah, hey, how are you? And I'm like, I'm great, thanks. How can I help you? Yeah, I know that you work with Elton John for his Oscar, but I need a couple of tickets. He said, and I want to meet him. And I went, oh, okay, then, can you just, let me know why? Now, why is the most confrontational word in the planet? Okay, especially when followed with a pause. So people say to me, oh, Steve, I'd love to buy you a drink. I'm in LA. I'd love to meet you up for dinner. And I go, great, why? And I just shut up. I will actually send a text or a message when someone contacts me with just the word why. Now, you'll get people go, well, it's because I've got this project going on. I'm thinking, oh, that sounds great. Yes, it works for me. We'll meet. No, it doesn't work for me. We won't meet. Whatever. But now I've got the information. I'll also get other people going, well, I heard you were cool. You're just a prick. You're full of yourself. And they will get very upset because I've challenged them with that why. So this guy gets on the phone. He wants to meet Elton John. I said, oh, why? And he just turned around and he said, well, he's an icon. I want a photograph with him. He's going to be dead soon. Yeah. I went, really? He's like, yeah, great. 2 tickets, please. Can you get it done? And that was the conversation. So I said to him, well, let me see what I can do and come back to him. I'm thinking, does he know something I don't know? Why does he suddenly think Elton John's going to be dead soon? We're all going to be dead. We don't know when, but why is this guy thinking it? And he was so just wanting that photograph, but there was no depth to it. This went on for about 2 months later. He never contacted us. We never contacted him. This other guy from New York contacted us, and we had all discussed this fella. And this guy phones us up, and we had an office in Palm Beach at the time. And one of the girls, contacted me in my office. She said, I've got this New Yorker on the phone, wants 2 tickets, and he wants to meet Elton John. I don't, is it the same guy that contacted us 2 weeks ago? And I went, I don't know. Put him through, because we obviously never contacted the guy. The guy gets on the phone. He's like, hey, how are you? He said, yeah, I believe you're working with Elton John. I need 2 tickets. I need to meet Elton John. I said, oh, okay, great. Why? Well, he's a living legend. He's an icon, and I want to get a photograph on him. I want to talk to him for a couple of minutes. And yeah. So if you give me a couple of tickets, I'd appreciate it. Oh, okay. But why? Why do you want to meet him? Why do you want to have a conversation with him? So I asked again, and it knocked the guy back. And I've always said, I talk about it in my book, Go for Stupid. And I say, ask why repeatedly. Because the first answer is like dating. You know, you never meet someone on the first date. You never meet someone on the first interview. I wanted to get through to the core. So by constantly asking why, I wanted to understand the reason behind the question. Why now? Why you? Why should I bother? Why? And it knocked this guy back. And all of a sudden, his tempo, his frequency, his vibe changed, and he got quieter. And he turned around and he went, "It's because of my dad. I want to have a conversation with him because of my dad." And his voice was definitely quiet. And I went, okay, again, why? Why do you want to have a conversation? Why is it important to have that conversation? What's it got to do with your dad? Now, I was matching his tone, and he went quiet, and he came back and he went, "When I was a kid, my dad used to pick me up and take me to school and bring me home from school. It was our thing. My mum never did it. She'd wave us off, but it was always my dad. My dad would miss anything to take me to school and pick me up. And on the way there, we would sing Elton John. And I remember he had a cassette in one of these cars, and we couldn't get the bloody cassette out of the car, and it was Elton John's greatest hits. So that's the only damn thing we could play in the car. So he used to make this thing of singing, and we would sing our lungs out. I'd get out of the car and I couldn't talk because we were singing so loud, Elton John. And then he got another car and it had a DVD player, you know, one of these like CD player things. And he got Elton John's greatest hits, and again would shove it in, and we would sing out Elton John's greatest. And then, of course, I hit my teenage years. And I wasn't old enough to have the car yet, but he was still taking me to high school. And he was, and I would be so embarrassed. And I would tell my mum, "Can you tell him to stop singing?" Because my dad would be singing away, and I would get in the car so fast and quickly slam the door. And I'd be like, "Go, go," so that no one would see him singing Elton John as he would drive me home. And he used to do it, and he never, ever stopped doing it. And then one day, I got a car, and I no longer had to listen to him sing Elton John. I was over the bloody moon. And then my dad died, and I've got kids, and I'll be driving them to school. You know, me and my wife share that journey, you know, and I'd be taking them out for night, or we'd be on a, you know, like a staycation or something like that. We'd be in the car, and on the radio comes Elton John. And for the next 2 to 3 minutes, my dad is sat next to me singing his lungs out. So random days of my life, the radio comes on, Elton's there, and he brings my dad back to me. He said, "No, wish I could sing more, just one more time with my dad." And I want to thank Elton for bringing him back to me every now and then, random times during the day, random journeys, random countries. And so we got that. So I arranged for him to meet Elton John. And at a crowded, noisy party, this guy leant in and told Elton John this story. And they hugged. Now, I couldn't hear the story. It was too loud. But I could see him conversing. And I knew kind of what part of the story he was at. And I could hear Elton leaning in and hearing this. And to see the hug, the embrace, and the photograph made it worthwhile. Why? Because he had a why. The first guy didn't. He wanted a superficial photograph that he could shove on his desk and make out as though he was important. But this guy had a why. And that's the difference. Get into relationships with people that have a why and ignore those that don't.
Wow. Yeah, that's the story is important. I was thinking that when you started telling the story about it, about the first guy, and then got into the second, that why is so important. And I do that repeatedly to people too. Like, why do you want this? Why do you want to accomplish this? It don't matter about where your money situation is right now. If your why isn't strong enough, you're never going to accomplish it. You're never going to get what you want. You have to have a strong enough why. So that's amazing that you were able to get that gentleman in front of Elton John. I could see, though, even you're a fantastic storyteller. I knew that before. And obviously the listeners, people watching, you're finding that out for yourself. You got very emotional about that, and it connected with and resonated with you. So when somebody and you're asking them why, and they're telling you a story, that calmness of their voice and you matching it resonated with you. Even you resharing this story, I don't know how many years ago this was, it brought up an emotional response. And I find some of the people that take life the most serious and accomplish the most are the ones that can connect with their why emotionally. Would you agree with that?
I think in a world of technology where we've got so many different ways to connect with each other, we've never been more disconnected. And I think the only thing that differences you between Amazon is your willingness to connect with another human being. Amazon doesn't connect with you, it connects with your checkbook. And for us to stay in business, for us to stay alive, for us to have a point, the only point is that we want to connect with like-minded individuals. You spoke about Tony. People have groups. I have a community called Sims Distillery. People need a place where they can be themselves and connect with people that will support, challenge, and listen. We're in a world where we're incredibly quick to judge and incredibly slow to listen. And we're fundamentally the same. We've never changed. We love to sit there and go, oh, we're so advanced now. Oh, we're so educated. We're so woke. You know, we know that things were ignorant before, but we're no longer ignorant. We're now super smart. Bullshit. We haven't changed. We walk past a bush, and if the thing rustles, we shit our pants and we either run away or we get prepared to fight. We walk down the road and we hear the sound of a car that we like, and we go, ooh, what's that? We see something we like, whether it be a girl or a guy or whatever your tendencies, and we go, whoa, that's cute. You know, we haven't changed. We want to connect with other like-minded individuals who share our passion to drive impact, to create disruption, to do things differently. We've not changed. Yet we're in a world of mass disconnection, discomfort, distraction, and distortion, and noise. But at the end of it, we just want to connect with another human being. And when that stops, it's the end of the human race.
Yeah, it's true though. And you know, I like the comment about Amazon. It's just your checkbook. At the end of the day, I know a lot of entrepreneurs that work out of their home like myself. I used to be in brick and mortar. I got out of it. And one of the things I did like about the brick and mortar was, you know, you're connecting with people, but they weren't necessarily people that were like-minded. So I ended up getting rid of that during the pandemic and just focused on working out of my house. And there's things I could order on Amazon that I did during the pandemic. Now I'll go out and actually buy it because I like that human interaction. I like being able to smile at somebody or give them a compliment and say, you know what, you gotta, you know, that's a nice necklace you're wearing, or you got a great smile. Just to start that little few minute interaction of that connection, that human experience. And you are so correct though, it is dying. And which is very sad. It's very sad that people like walk down the street. Anybody listening or watching, I challenge you to walk down a busy street or go into a busy room, and how many people look at you, or how many people look down at the ground and look away from you as you're walking toward them. They don't want you to interact with them. They don't want you to disrupt their bubble, their world that they're living in, their mindset. Their 6 inches is stuck. You know what? I challenge you to do that. Go up to that person and just say hi. Stick out your hand and say, I'm Dwight, or hi, I'm Steve, whatever. And start that conversation. You know, we owe it to other people to sometimes, as Steve would say, disrupt them. And it's as simple as just getting out of your house, going into surroundings you're uncomfortable with, because nothing in life is truly achieved without going outside your comfort zone. Nothing. Right. And in my life, I've enjoyed more connections and had more accomplishments and met the most unique, interesting people because I'm willing to put myself out there. Even though most people wouldn't understand, I'm an extreme introvert. It drains the hell out of me to go and be in rooms. And even the other couple nights ago, I went and seen a lot of people watching, listening. You might not know who they are, but I've been a fan of them since the 70s, the Doobie Brothers. They were in my city of 1.5 million people. It was a sold out concert. It was beautiful. I left there. I was exhausted, but I put myself out there because of the experience, right? I wanted that experience. And the people around me in between breaks and that, we were chatting and stuff, people I didn't know, but we interacted. As human beings, we need that interaction. We need that fulfilledness of actually communicating. Quit hiding behind a camera, quit hiding on your couch watching television, quit hiding with Amazon, and get out and experience life. Because as Steve mentioned earlier, we don't know if you have even the next hour, right?
No,
Even,
no idea.
even being on this call, both Steve and I put our phones in do not disturb. Why? Because Steve's giving me something he'll never get back. Time. And I'll never get that time back. So I want to darn well be present with this amazing individual that I was blessed to meet because of connections that I made with other people. It's like a spider's web, people. Start it, the web will go out and you'll connect and your life will be so much more fulfilled. And you're not going to be that person that's on their deathbed going, geez, I wish I watched that one more episode last night. Right? You're going to be that person that's going, man, I'm fulfilled. I talk about it all the time. I coach on living legacy. Like people always talk about legacy planning. But legacy planning isn't for when you're dead. You should be building it and creating it as you're working. What difference are you making? Steve has a legacy that's amazing from researching him and listening to him today. And if he dies an hour from now, his legacy was already creating. And, people say, well, I want to create a legacy. What? You should be creating it already. What have you accomplished? What are you doing? And then I'll help them change their mindset about life and not being that person, like you said, talking with their checkbook to Amazon and not wanting to put themselves out there. So I appreciate your shares. Your stories are amazing.
Good.
So quoted as the real life Wizard of Oz. Love that. By Forbes and Entrepreneur magazine. How did that come to be? Was that something that was said in passing, picked up or spread? Or did you have a hand in, that happening? How did that happen?
Oh, Jesus. It was the biggest fuck up of my business.
Right on.
It absolutely was. And I'm not kidding you. So I had spent 25 years and I'd kind of got into a good rut. But it was a rut. I never wanted to be a concierge. I never wanted to be a Mr. Fixer. I never wanted any of that. But here I was traveling the planet, working with the most powerful people in the planet, getting paid very well to, hang out with kings and queens, rock stars, titans, tycoons, backstage, front stage. It was a hard train to get off of, but I'd learned a lot and I was already coaching and speaking, but no one really knew who I was. And as an introvert, I also love being the guy behind the scenes. I love the fact that I'm organizing you to do this with Guns N' Roses, or this with Andrea Bocelli, or this in the Vatican, or this in the Accademia de Gallery. That's great, but I'm glad that no one knows it's me. And Forbes every now and then had contacted me and they've gone, hey, where's the best restaurants in Monaco during the Formula One Grand Prix? And I would tell them. It was great advertising and marketing. This company tells us we're the best. And it was that kind of thing. So I was still quite hidden. And then one day they said, we really should, can I do an interview on you? And I was like, I don't really care. I think they must have quite bluntly had a blank space and they needed a story. They did an 8-page expose on me in Forbes magazine, calling me the real life Wizard of Oz, the man with the coolest job in the world. Showed pictures of me with Elton John and Elon Musk and all these different people, Donald Trump when I worked for him at Mar-a-Lago, all of these different things. And they called me the real life Wizard of Oz. Now, if I had offered you an 8-page article, and it was all wonderful, it showed me being connected. I think the New York Times or the New York Post got hold of this and did a follow-up calling me the most connected man in the world that you've never heard of. So this was all really, really good media. I was absolutely everywhere. And I was laying in bed and a friend of mine phoned me up from New York and he went, hey, Wizard. And I went, oh, what do you want? He went, hey, it's the Wizard. And I went, yeah, you've said that. He's like, the Wizard of Oz, the wonderful, wonderful Wizard. I'm like, fuck you going on about? Because this guy was annoying me. I was waking up and he's like, dude, you're in Forbes. And I was like, what do you want about? I'm now reached pissed off. What are you talking about? And he's like, dude, I'll send you the link. And he sends me this link of this article I was in Forbes. And I literally sat in bed and read it. My wife started to wake up and I'm like, I don't know if this is good or bad. You know, I've got amazing press here. It says wonderful things, but I'm just concerned about how my clients are going to feel about this, because my clients were very wealthy, very powerful. So in which case they would always say, oh, yes, I was here with this. Oh, yes. Everyone thought it was them that was connected. They didn't realize that they had me in their pocket and I was actually the one pulling the strings. So I had, by lunchtime, maybe 15, 20 phone calls and emails from clients going, hey, Sims, I saw this article. Congratulations. That's absolutely fantastic. You're going to be a rock star out of this. But hey, I can't work with you anymore. People know who you are. You can't be at my parties because they're going to realize it's not me that got XYZ. It's you. So I lost a huge, like a third of my clients by mid-afternoon, and attracted a whole bunch of people that wanted to do things just because they wanted to show off. So I suddenly got new clients that weren't the right clients, and the old clients, I lost them. And it was a real dark time. Amazing media, amazing more clients. You know, we went from 93 clients to like 300 clients over a period of like 2 weeks, and I didn't want it. And I thought, I want to get rid of this. I don't want to be in this world anymore. The people that I'm dealing with don't have a story. They don't have a why. They have a checkbook. And it had been the people that I'd always said I didn't want to deal with, you know? And then I got the chance. I got contacted when I was in a party and I met this woman and I was telling her stories and she went, you should write a book. And I went, yeah, sure. She went, no, seriously, we'll pay you to write a book. And she happened to be part of Simon & Schuster. So a week later, I got one of the largest publishing houses in the planet. And again, that's down to be in the right room. You know, always make sure you're in the right room. When you're in the right room, wonderful things can happen. When you're in poor rooms, fuck all can happen. And I was in this room and this girl said to me, you know, you should write a book. A week later, she offered me a beautiful amount of money to write a book. And I went, fine, done. I'm going to write this book and I'm going to move away from the concierge firm. And I didn't think it would happen, but it did. And so I sold the concierge firm. I don't do that anymore. And I literally travel the planet now, teaching, training, coaching, writing books, running events, my events for people that want to disrupt. So I still, and the beautiful thing was the second I sold the concierge firm, all of those very powerful people started coming back to me going, hey, what are you working on? Yeah, what are you doing? Why are you? And I got those conversations back again. So I've got the relationships back that I lost due to the massive media. And I'm still able to have those conversations. So it's pretty cool.
Everything happens. Like, I know people that's saying pisses some people off, but everything happens for a reason. So from that article being written to you losing, you know, having 90 some clients to a few hundred all of a sudden and not being the people you wanted, it still worked out. The universe gives you what you need. If you're God-fearing like me, God gives you what you need. You needed to step outside. You were in a comfort zone and now you've stepped outside that comfort zone and now you're achieving so much more and you're going out and spreading the information that you might not have shared before. You might not have written that book. Like, you know, I wanted to talk to you about that too. You're the best-selling author of Blue Fishing, The Art of Making Things Happen, and Go for Stupid, The Art of Achieving Ridiculous Goals. And for those watching, you see pictures of it. Go for Stupid. I love the title.
Yeah.
So in my life as an entrepreneur, I've heard of many outlandish, ridiculous goals from people, especially 21 years of working with individuals and businesses and corporations, helping them goal set, and some of the silliest things that I've heard, and as you would say, laughable, yet somehow those people end up accomplishing them. So I had to disconnect myself from the laughable and really think about it. This person's done all this stuff. They can accomplish it, instead of judging them based on society laughing at the fact that they want to step out of their comfort zone. They want to be that person that's not normal, that abnormal person. What does a person require in order to reach those laughable, ridiculous goals, in your opinion?
Well, you first got to understand the reason and get it framed correctly why there was a second book. I wrote the first book, Bluefish, in the Art of Making Things Happen, because I got paid to. Therefore, I could release the book I wanted to. I didn't care if it sold or not. I could release the book I wanted to because I was already paid. Shock, horror, surprise, it became the bestseller and translated, I think, in 9 countries and hit bestseller in all of those. But the idea of me doing a second book was about as likable as me getting a head of hair. I just did not want to touch it. I didn't want to do another book. And then COVID came across and I got really pissed off. I got really aggravated with the people that weren't willing to connect, was sitting there binging and whining and moaning. And it annoyed me. So I started writing blogs and articles, and people said to me, you should make this a book. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And we all thought that COVID was going to last about 6 months, didn't we? We all thought by summer, it'd be 2 years later. And I thought, fuck it, people need to change. And the dumb thing was during that period of us not being able to connect, we, as a civilization, gave birth to 2 toxic societies, the gotcha society and the cancel culture. Oh my God, did you see that he went to a fancy dress party in 1997 as a penguin? How dare he be disrespectful to the community of penguins? What does he know about that heritage and that strife? Well, fuck yourself. For all of a sudden, we had to start apologizing for what we did when we were 19 years old. Thank God there wasn't videos in the 80s and 90s. Otherwise, the entire society would be cancelled. But that's what we were in. And all of a sudden, we gave birth to an Olympic society whose sole job was to watch you and they go, boom, he said that word, gotcha, cancel him. And there was an old saying, what would you do today if you weren't frightened of failing? Or that you knew you wouldn't fail. Well, every time we failed, have we not become educated? Isn't failure that beautiful nugget? Doesn't it empower us? I could lose all of my money tomorrow because I have done in the past. And therefore, by losing it in the past, I learned how to make it again. And I learned how to keep it. So if I lose it all tomorrow, I have relationships and I have education and knowledge. Isn't that empowerment? Why would we remove our ability of that by going, if you knew you wouldn't fail? Yet failing's the growth. But now the saying's changed. What would you do today if you weren't scared of people laughing at you? And I look at the planet. We're all taught to fit in a mold. Don't stand out. Don't you say that. Oh my God, if you step out, I'll whack-a-mole you and you'll be done. Yet everyone we revere today, from Oprah Winfrey, Larry Page, Elon Musk, Richard Branson, they didn't listen to that. They had ridiculous goals, laughable goals to you, the normies, the poor people, but they went and got, I want to go to space. How shall I do it? Just simple childlike mentality like that. I want you to be able to get all the information you want on your phone. Steve Jobs. I want it all to be sitting there so you can become smart in everything you need. Google. I want you to be able to learn how to smile and live. Mother Teresa. All of these people did things and not caring about other people laughing at them. And I wondered, was it today's society? So I started looking through history. Henry Ford, Walt Disney, all of these people that were stepping out. The people we revere today started off by having ridiculous goals that for the normies and the poor people out there, they found laughable. And so I urge you, if your goal's not laughable, is it really a goal? I want you to push yourself to the point that this book came out last year, became a bestseller, made loads of money at it. Great. Materialistically, I've ticked that off. I want to give it away. So on goforstupid.com, you can actually watch all 12 chapters for free. I just want people to get it, consume it, and do something with it. So that's where I am. I want people to realize that the society we are in is bad. It's toxic. It's cancerous. But you can do something about it. You don't have to accept it. You become what you consume. And if you are consuming all of this negativity, guess what you are? But if you consume opportunity, realize that you can do anything with help, guidance, and the right room, then that's what you become. So that's where I am. That's my mission.
No, that's fantastic. It's a fabulous mission. You talked about there's two different types of things that happen because of COVID, the gotcha and the cancel society. It reminds me of the movie The Matrix, the blue and the red.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
It's just so many people are they're automatons. They're just sheep. Are you going to be a leader? Are you going to be a sheep? It's pretty simple. What do you want to be in life? Do you want to be somebody that's a disruptor? That's people look, I get this all the time from people. They'll introduce me. I'll be at a conference or whatever. They'll say, this is Dwight. You need to know him. But, some of them will give him like they give you that warning label. Let's say Dwight is somebody that's very blunt. So be prepared. And I'm a type of person that somebody will say something just absolutely asinine, and I've become a wordsmith. I don't know what your opinion is about that. As we have a thesaurus for a reason. You can say the same thing with so many different words or so many different ways, and I'll say things to people, and I'm literally stripping them down and calling them dumb, but they don't even realize it. My old self, before I became that wordsmith, would be a person that would just say, "You're dumb." You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wish I was a better wordsmith. I
practice, dude.
Well, maybe I have to, or maybe I shouldn't. I don't know, but
I like who you are. I'm just saying I had to, because I was a very introverted, shy person, and I had somebody challenge me, a mentor of mine 30 years ago, and he said, "You need to go and do this. You need to do that." But he also mentioned about associations. Like, bottom line, I coach and talk about that all the time. What are you associating with? Who are you associating with? If you're always feeling blah, you're associating with the wrong. And it's not always people. People always say, well, associations, I hang out with this person, they're wealthy, or I hang out with this person, they own this business, and blah, blah, blah. Doesn't mean that it's a good association. Associations are, what are you listening to? What are you reading? What podcasts do you listen to? When you're in a shitty mood, are you that stupid mother effer that's listening to shitty podcasts or listening to depressing music because somebody hurt your feelings? Are you gonna cry? Are you listening to stuff that's going to take you out of that shit mentality that you put yourself in? I had a guy on my podcast a few months back. He literally said the science has proven that if you start thinking negative, you got 45 seconds to change it. So what can you do in your mindset? What can you point your mind to an association to change it? Is it the case for everybody? No. But it is something that I've found myself. If I'm in the wrong state of mind, I'll get up, walk away from my computer, and I'll put on a documentary that's going to change my mindset. I'll listen to an Audible book. I'll put on a podcast of somebody that I know that's going to be more upbeat. They're going to be blunt, like I need to continue to be. Right? Because me being blunt or me being, a wordsmith it's not something that comes easily. I've had to practice, like I said, right? It has to be something that, if somebody says something to me, I don't want to be pausing. I want to be able to respond, right? Not react, but respond in a right way to get my point across. Do I rub people the wrong way? Oh yeah. Like our mutual person we talked about, there's people that have reached out to me after the fact, after some of our calls, our mastermind calls, that weren't happy with what I said. Oh, well, that's a you issue. That's the way. That's the way I say to people. Oh, I didn't like when you said this and this and that. When they do challenge me, I'll just say, well, that's a you issue. And if those people listening, watching, sometimes I do say the wrong thing, and then be person that's man enough or woman enough or whatever to say, you know what, you're right. Here's what I was trying to get across. I could have said it differently. Doesn't change the fact the information was right. I give it to you the way that you couldn't accept, right? Sometimes that happens, but most often I just go, you know what? I'm sorry that rubbed you the wrong way. That's a you issue. I guess we can't be in the same tribe or friends. So, right. I'm looking for those that are like-minded and willing to work, with me. Not like I'm always right, but willing to challenge me even and tell me I'm full of shit. And I've gotten to a point where at one time in my life, Steve, people would say, you're full of this, and they'd be all angry, and I'd get all defensive. And now all of a sudden you got a clashing of personalities. Now I just look at it, well, you know what? That's great. I appreciate that insight, and I'll think about it before I respond, because before react, and it never solved nothing. You're both walking away convinced, like they say, people with the same opinion and they can't change their opinions. All they do is clash and nothing's accomplished. You walk away and you're still going to think the same thing, except that in your mindset, you're not saying it. That guy's an asshole. Right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So I appreciate that, brother. So Steve, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
Probably finish with my dad. My dad was a thick-set bricklayer, not the sharpest tool in the shed. But I remember him saying to me one day that no one ever drowned by falling in the water. They drowned by staying there.
Wow. That's powerful, though. You don't need to say more than that. That's a great closing message. I appreciate that. And for those that, rewind that 20 seconds and listen to that little statement again. You are where you are because of your choices. Don't stay stuck. That's simply your choice. If you're going to drown, it's because you decided not to get out of the water. So I love that. Our time is almost up. I want to respect our listeners in your time, brother. However, before we end, can you please tell the listeners what's the best way they can reach you?
Well, if they want the book for free, goforstupid.com. If they want to learn about me and Sims Distillery, then they can go to stevedsims.com, D for dashing and 1M in Sims, Steve D Sims. But you can get me anywhere on social at Steve D Sims. I'm probably most vocal on Instagram. If you want to send me a message on Instagram, then just let me know that you heard about me through this podcast and I can start having a chat with you. But don't be surprised if I go, why? So there you go. Steve D Sims, anywhere you consume your media, or stevedsims.com.
Awesome. Those that are new to the show, go to giveaheck.com, go into the podcast portal, and you'll see the abbreviated show notes. I'll make sure all the links that Steve talked about are in there, including his connections to social media, make it a little bit easier for you. But bottom line, you just got to get off your ass and do something, right? Reach out.
Thank you very much.
Get the book. Like, it's amazing information. I love my podcast because I learned so much from it that helps my life. Whether or not any listener ever engages, I learned so much from the fabulous guests I've had on. So I appreciate your time, brother. Like I said earlier, you'll never get it back, but I appreciate you investing in me and obviously my listeners and people that watch. So any last closing comments before I wrap up the show?
I think I did.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being on Give a Heck, Steve. I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn. It is never too late to give a heck. Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.